The alien baron gave him his paralyzed daughter as a joke, but he saw her true potential. The neon-lit halls of Baron Thex's citadel cast an eerie purple glow across Jackson Reed's battle-scarred armor as he stood before the alien nobleman, his patience wearing thinner by the second. The Baron's emerald skin seemed to shimmer with barely contained amusement as he lounged on his crystalline throne, surrounded by armed guards whose trigger fingers twitched with anticipation. "My dear human," Baron Thex drawled, his silver eyes glinting with malice, "surely you understand that times are difficult. Credits are hard to come by these days." Jackson clenched his jaw, the muscles in his stubbled face tightening. "We had a deal, Baron. I cleared out your little Ravager problem. Now pay up." The Baron's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, but I have something far more valuable than mere credits to offer you." He gestured to his guards, who disappeared behind an ornate door. "I don't have time for games," Jackson growled. "My ship needs repairs and—" The words died in his throat as the guards returned, pushing a wooden cart. On it lay one of the most beautiful creatures he had ever seen. Her skin was a pale, delicate green, her long, flowing hair the color of midnight shadows. She wore a revealing beige gown that left little to the imagination, the corset-like top accentuating her curves in ways that made Jackson's mouth go dry. But it was her eyes that caught him, fierce, intelligent, and burning with barely contained rage. "Meet my daughter, Thyla," the Baron announced with theatrical flourish. "She's been, shall we say, damaged goods since an unfortunate accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. Quite useless to me now, really. But perhaps you could find some value in her?" The princess's voice cut through the air like a plasma blade. "Father, you cannot—" "Silence," Baron Thex snapped. "The deal is done. Guards, help our human friend load his new acquisition onto his ship." Jackson stared at the Baron, then at the furious princess. This had to be some kind of sick joke. But as he watched the guards roughly manhandle Thyla onto a hover stretcher, he realized the Baron was deadly serious. "You can't just give away your own daughter," Jackson protested, even as his mind raced through possibilities. "The black market would pay handsomely for an alien noble, paralyzed or not." "I believe I just did," the Baron replied smoothly. "Now, unless you'd prefer I have my guards escort you out without any compensation at all?" Jackson's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm, but he forced it back down. He was good, but not good enough to fight his way through an entire citadel of armed guards. "Fine," he spat, "but this isn't over, Baron." As he followed the guards carrying Thyla toward his ship, he could feel her eyes boring into him. When they were out of earshot of the throne room, she spoke, her voice low and dangerous. "If you think I'm going to be some helpless damsel for you to sell off to the highest bidder, you're gravely mistaken, human." Jackson met her gaze, surprised by the steel in her voice. "Lady, right now I'm just trying to figure out how to get off this rock without getting shot. We can discuss your future market value later." Something flickered in her eyes. Was that amusement? Before he could analyze it further, they reached his ship, the Stellar Vagrant. As the guards none too gently transferred Thyla to his cargo hold, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become exponentially more complicated. The Stellar Vagrant's engines hummed to life as Jackson guided the ship out of the Baron's citadel. In the cargo hold behind him, converted into a makeshift living space, Princess Thyla sat propped against the wall, her elegant gown pooling around her like liquid starlight. "You're making a mistake if you think you can sell me," she said, breaking the tense silence. Her voice carried an aristocratic lilt that somehow made her threat sound even more dangerous. "The black market traders you're considering, they're all in my father's pocket." Jackson kept his eyes on the controls, but his jaw tightened. "Reading minds now, princess." "Please," she scoffed. "I've seen that calculating look before. But I have something far more valuable to offer than whatever price you think I'll fetch. Let me guess, your eternal gratitude." He couldn't keep the sarcasm from his voice. "Information." The word hung in the air between them. "About my father's illegal weapons trading, his deals with the Ravagers you just fought, everything." Jackson finally turned to face her, studying her carefully. The ship's ambient lighting caught the subtle shimmer in her pale green skin, and for a moment he found himself distracted by the way her chest rose and fell with each breath, the corset of her gown doing little to hide her. He forced his eyes back to her face. "Why would you betray your own father?" Thyla's laugh was bitter. That man stopped being my father the day he decided a paralyzed daughter was worthless to his legacy. He's been trying to get rid of me for months, first through marriage arrangements with decrepit old nobles, then through increasingly tragic accidents. This was just his latest attempt. And I'm supposed to trust you? Jackson moved closer, his boots echoing on the metal floor. For all I know, this is some elaborate trap. You don't have much choice, she replied, a hint of smugness creeping into her voice. Your ship's reactor is failing. I can hear the irregularity in the engine harmonics. You need credits for repairs, and my information could net you enough to buy 3 new ships. Jackson cursed under his breath. She was right about the reactor. He'd been hoping to fix it with the payment from her father. Fine. Talk. Not yet. Her eyes glittered with intelligence. First, we need to make a deal. I'll give you everything I know about my father's operations, but in exchange, you help me access certain restricted medical facilities. There's experimental technology that could help me walk again. And why shouldn't I just torture the information out of you? The threat was hollow, and they both knew it. Thyla's smile was razor sharp. Because, Jackson Reed, I've done my research on you. You're many things. Mercenary, smuggler, occasional hero to the downtrodden. But you're not that kind of monster. Besides, she shifted slightly, the movement causing her gown to slip further off one shoulder. I think we could help each other in many ways. Jackson felt heat rise to his face and cursed his body's betrayal. This alien princess was dangerous in more ways than one. Stop that. Stop what? Her innocence was clearly feigned, but there was something playful in her expression now. I'm merely getting comfortable. It's not my fault human males are so easily distracted. You're injured, remember? Only from the waist down. Her voice dropped to a sultry whisper. Everything else works just fine. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, trying to focus. Let's stick to business. What kind of information are we talking about? Thyla's expression turned serious. Enough to bring down his entire operation? Shipping manifests, corrupt official contacts, hidden accounts, everything. But we'll need to move fast. Once he realizes I'm actually helping you instead of being sold off, he'll send hunters. Great, just great. Jackson checked their heading, plotting a course away from the Baron's territory. And these medical facilities you mentioned? On Station Nexus 9, it's not far, but it's heavily guarded. Getting in won't be easy. It never is. He found himself smiling despite the situation. You know, Princess, you're not what I expected. And what did you expect? A helpless, sobbing noble who'd beg for rescue? Something like that. Sorry to disappoint. She didn't sound sorry at all. Oh, you're not disappointing at all. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he saw her cheeks darken with what he assumed was the alien equivalent of a blush. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the ship's steady hum. Jackson found himself stealing glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking, admiring the way she held herself with dignity despite her circumstances. She caught him once and raised an eyebrow, causing him to quickly look away. We should reach neutral space in about 6 hours, he said, clearing his throat. You should rest. Are you offering to carry me to bed, Jackson Reed? Her tone was teasing, but there was something else there too, a hint of genuine vulnerability. If you need help, yes. He tried to keep his voice professional. But something tells me you figured out ways to manage on your own. Smart man. She used her arms to adjust her position, movements graceful despite her limitations. But I might take you up on that offer someday. Station Nexus 9 loomed before them, a massive structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. Jackson guided the stellar vagrant through the docking procedures, while Thyla studied the station's schematics on a holographic display. The medical facility is in Section K7, she said, her fingers dancing through the projection. But there's a problem. The station's overseer is Lord Darius Krell. Jackson's hands tightened on the controls. The same Krell who runs half the illegal operations in this sector? The very same. Thyla's lips curved into a knowing smile. And he's been trying to acquire my father's weapons contracts for years. Before Jackson could respond, the ship's comm system crackled to life. A message scrolled across the screen, an invitation to meet with Lord Krell himself, along with an offer that made Jackson's eyes widen. 5 million credits, he whispered, just to hand you over to him. Thyla's voice was carefully neutral. And are you tempted, Jackson Reed? He turned to face her, taking in her elegant pose despite her confinement to the makeshift seat they'd fashioned. Over the past days, he'd grown accustomed to her presence, to their verbal sparring matches that always seemed to carry an undercurrent of something more. You know what's interesting? He said, ignoring her question. Krell's offering exactly what your father's weapons contracts are worth. Almost like he knows what information you're carrying. Very observant, she adjusted her gown, the movement deliberately drawing his eye. Krell has spies everywhere, but he doesn't know everything. Such as? Such as the fact that I've already transmitted copies of all my father's data to secure locations. As if anything happens to me, it goes public. Her smile turned predatory. And such as the fact that the experimental medical technology I mentioned, it's not just for treating paralysis, it's a breakthrough in neural interface technology that both Krell and my father would kill to possess. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Thyla had come to recognize as a sign of frustration. You couldn't have mentioned this earlier? Would you have believed me? She reached out, catching his hand as he passed near her. Her skin was cool against his, sending an unexpected shiver through him. Besides, I needed to be sure. Sure of what? That you're the kind of man I thought you were. Her thumb traced patterns on his palm. The kind who sees beyond the surface, beyond a paralyzed alien princess who's supposedly nothing but a burden. Jackson found himself stepping closer, drawn by something in her eyes. And what kind of man is that? The kind who's about to help me steal revolutionary medical technology from under the nose of one of the sector's most dangerous crime lords. Her smile was both challenging and inviting. Unless you'd prefer those 5 million credits? He laughed, surprising them both. You know, Princess, I'm starting to think your father was an even bigger fool than I initially thought. Oh, her eyebrow arched elegantly. He saw you as damaged goods, a burden to be discarded. Jackson leaned down, his face close to hers. But I'm seeing potential, a mind sharp enough to outmaneuver both your father and Krell. The courage to risk everything for a chance at mobility. And her breath hitched slightly. And someone who makes me forget she's supposed to be a burden every time she opens her mouth to challenge me. A deep emerald blush spread across her cheeks, but her eyes sparkled with mischief. Only when I open my mouth? Don't start, he warned, but couldn't help smiling. We need to focus. How do you propose we get into this medical facility? Thyla activated another holographic display, this one showing the station's security patterns. Krell's invitation is actually perfect. He'll be expecting you to either reject it or try to negotiate. Instead, you'll accept. While I use the maintenance tunnels to access K7, there's a service elevator that's perfect for someone who's good with their upper body strength, she demonstrated by easily lifting herself with just her arms. I'll need you to create a distraction when I reach the lab. Jackson watched her movements, admiring both her physical capability and her strategic thinking. And what happens when Krell realizes we've played him? By then, we'll either have succeeded or be dead. She shrugged, the movement causing her gown to slip slightly. But I don't think we'll fail. Such confidence. In myself, always. In you? Her eyes met his, suddenly serious. More than I expected to have in anyone. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Jackson cleared his throat. We'll need supplies, and you'll need something less conspicuous to wear. Are you saying my royal attire isn't suitable for crawling through maintenance tunnels? She affected an exaggerated pout. And here I thought you enjoyed the view. Princess. Thyla, she corrected softly. After all we've been through, I think you've earned the right to use my name. Thyla. He tested the name, liking how it felt. We should prepare. Krell's not known for his patience. No, she agreed, her expression turning thoughtful. But then, neither am I. Especially not when I'm this close to walking again. To being able to... She trailed off, her meaning clear in the way her eyes traveled over him. Jackson swallowed hard and forced himself to focus on the mission plans. But part of him couldn't help wondering what it would be like to see her walk, to watch her move with the same grace she showed even while confined to sitting, to dance with her perhaps. The stolen medical technology hummed softly in the stellar vagrant's makeshift medical bay, its neural interfaces glowing with a soft blue light as they integrated with Thyla's nervous system. Jackson watched the diagnostic screens, his expression a mixture of concern and fascination. "How does it feel?" he asked, noting the flush spreading across her pale green skin. "Strange," Thyla breathed, her fingers gripping the examination table's edges. "It's like every nerve ending is awakening at once. I can feel my legs again, but there's something else." She trailed off, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his breath catch. "The neural enhancement seems to be affecting more than just your motor functions," Jackson observed, studying the readings. "Your entire sensory system is being amplified." "You have no idea," she whispered, reaching for his hand. The moment their skin made contact, she gasped. "Jackson, I need—" "Doctor." Ben's notes mentioned potential side effects, he interrupted, trying to maintain professional distance despite the electricity that seemed to spark between them. But this level of neural stimulation wasn't documented. "Perhaps," Thyla said, her voice husky, "he never tested it on someone of my species. Or perhaps—" She pulled herself up with remarkable strength, the medical gown clinging to her now fevered skin. "Perhaps he never tested it on someone who already had such strong feelings for their caretaker." Jackson swallowed hard. "Thyla, you're not thinking clearly. The neural enhancement is affecting your judgment." "No," she cut him off, her grip on his hand tightening. "It's not affecting my judgment. It's just intensifying everything I already felt, making it impossible to hide behind clever words and subtle glances anymore." The ship's environmental controls seemed to be malfunctioning because the temperature in the medical bay felt about 20 degrees higher than normal. Jackson tried to focus on the medical readings, but Thyla's presence demanded his attention. "We need to monitor the integration process," he managed. "Make sure there aren't any dangerous complications." "The only dangerous complication," Thyla said, pulling herself closer to him with her enhanced strength, "is that if you don't kiss me soon, I might actually combust." "That's the neural enhancement talking, is it?" She raised an eyebrow. "Then why is your heart rate elevated? Why are your pupils dilated? The enhancement might be amplifying my needs, Jackson, but it didn't create them." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as both frustration and attraction. "This isn't how I wanted this to happen. How did you want it to happen?" Her fingers traced patterns on his arm, each touch sending shivers through both of them. "After a proper courtship? Some noble ceremony? In case you've forgotten, I was literally given to you as a joke." "Don't remind me," he growled. "Why not? It's rather poetic, isn't it?" Her smile was triumphant. "My father thought he was punishing both of us. Instead, he gave me exactly what I needed. Someone who saw my potential instead of my limitations. Someone who helped me become whole again." "You were never broken," Jackson said fiercely. "Paralyzed or not, you were always the most capable person I've ever met. And now?" She gestured to her legs, which were beginning to respond to her commands. "Now that I can feel everything, move everything." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Now that every nerve ending in my body is screaming for your touch?" Jackson groaned. "You're going to be the death of me, princess." "On the contrary," she purred, "I think I'm going to be the life of you. Now, are you going to keep pretending this isn't exactly what we both want, or—" He kissed her. The neural enhancement made every sensation explosive. Thyla's enhanced nervous system transmitted every touch, every breath, every heartbeat with crystal clarity. She could feel the rough stubble on his jaw, the heat of his skin, the way his pulse raced to match hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Thyla's eyes were glowing with an inner light, a side effect of the neural enhancement responding to her elevated emotional state. "Well," she said, her voice shaky but amused, "I suppose that's one way to test the system's response to stimulation. We should really run more diagnostic tests," Jackson said, not sounding very convinced himself. "Oh, I plan to run extensive tests," Thyla assured him, her enhanced strength allowing her to pull him closer again. "Very thorough, very detailed tests, for science, of course." "Of course," he agreed, unable to help smiling. "But first we need to make sure the enhancement is properly integrated. I won't risk your health, no matter how persuasive you're being." "Fine," she sighed dramatically. But you should know that according to these readings, physical contact with you appears to be stabilizing the neural patterns. Almost as if what? As if we were meant to be compatible. She touched his face gently. As if my father's cruel joke was actually the universe's way of bringing together two pieces of a puzzle? That's a rather romantic way of looking at it. I'm a princess, she reminded him. Romance is in my blood, along with apparently an overwhelming attraction to stubborn human mercenaries who treat me like a person instead of a burden. The warning alarms on the medical equipment startled both Jackson and Thyla from their intimate moment. Red lights flashed across the diagnostic screens as Thyla's neural readings began to fluctuate dangerously. Something's wrong, Jackson muttered, quickly scanning the data. The enhancement is destabilizing. Thyla's grip on his arm tightened as pain flickered across her features. I can feel it. It's like my nervous system is trying to reject the technology, but... Her eyes widened as she noticed something peculiar. Yeah, Jackson, look at the readings when you're touching me versus when you're not. He followed her gaze to the neural pattern display. So when they maintained physical contact, her readings stabilized almost immediately. The moment they separated, the destabilization began again. That's unexpected, he said, unconsciously pulling her closer as the readings improved. The enhancement seems to be using our physical connection as an anchor point. Of course it is, Thyla laughed weakly, pressing herself against his chest. The universe has a rather twisted sense of humor, doesn't it? First, my father gives me away as a joke, and now the technology that's supposed to free me apparently requires me to stay physically bound to you. We need to find a more permanent solution, Jackson said, trying to maintain his professional focus, despite the distracting warmth of her body against his. We can't exactly stay like this forever. Can't we? Her tone was playful, but there was a hint of vulnerability beneath it. Would that be so terrible? Before he could respond, the ship's proximity alerts blared. Multiple vessels were approaching, and their energy signatures matched both Krell's forces and Baranthex's fleet. Perfect timing, Jackson growled, reaching for the ship's controls while keeping one arm firmly around Thyla. Think you can handle navigation while I focus on weapons? Please, she scoffed, her fingers dancing across the nearest console. I was piloting luxury cruisers before you were stealing them. I never stole a luxury cruiser. No? What about the Celestial Dawn? That was legitimate salvage. Their banter was interrupted by the first volley of enemy fire. Jackson jerked the ship hard to port, keeping Thyla steady against him as they evaded the attacks. Their unusual forced proximity actually worked to their advantage. They moved as one unit, anticipating each other's actions with uncanny precision. They're trying to hedge us in, Thyla observed, her enhanced nervous system allowing her to process tactical data at remarkable speeds. Krell's ships are herding us toward my father's forces. Good thing we're not going either way then, Jackson grinned, his free hand activating a series of controls. Remember those modifications you called unnecessarily flashy last week? The ones that would probably blow up our engine? Her eyes narrowed. Jackson, don't you dare, he dared. The Stellar Vagrant's engine screamed as experimental thrust modulators engaged, sending them shooting their Warhana through a gap in the enemy formation that technically shouldn't have been possible to navigate. Thyla's enhanced reflexes were the only thing that kept them from clipping several pursuing vessels. You're insane, she gasped, half laughing, half terrified. Brilliantly, wonderfully insane. You love it, he shot back, then froze as he realized what he'd said. Yes, she said softly, taking advantage of a moment of relative calm to turn his face toward hers. I do. The moment stretched between them, heavy with meaning, until another blast rocked the ship. We need to find somewhere to lay low, Jackson said, reluctantly focusing on their situation. Somewhere we can research a permanent solution to the enhancement's stability issues. I might know a place, Thyla said thoughtfully. There's a research station in the Outer Rim. It's technically abandoned, but I know for a fact that a group of rogue scientists still operates there. They specialize in experimental biotechnology. Let me guess, not entirely legal research? Would I know about it if it was? She smirked. Besides, they owe me a favor. I may have neglected to mention their location to my father when he was conducting one of his purges. Your father really is a piece of work, isn't he? Indeed, though I suppose I should thank him. His latest cruel joke did lead me to you. She pressed closer, sighing contentedly as their contact further stabilized her neural readings. Even if we do need to figure out a way to make this connection permanent without requiring constant physical contact. About that, Jackson said, his voice rough. Even if we find a way to stabilize the enhancement without this, would you want to stay with you? She finished his thought, her enhanced nervous system picking up his elevated heart rate. Jackson Reed, are you trying to ask if I want to make this arrangement permanent in a more official capacity? Maybe. He managed to sound both confident and uncertain, a combination Thyla found endlessly charming. I mean, we work well together and there's obviously attraction and you're the only person who's ever seen me as more than just a burden or a bargaining chip, she interrupted softly. The only one who saw my potential, who helped me realize it. Even if we find a way to stabilize this enhancement without constant contact, I'm not going anywhere. Another blast rocked the ship, reminding them of their pursuit. First things first, though, Jackson said, plotting a course for the outer rim. We need to lose our admirers and find those scientists of yours. Our admirers can certainly try to follow, Thyla said confidently, her hands moving in perfect sync with his across the controls, but they don't stand a chance against us together. The rogue scientist's facility was a maze of abandoned corridors and repurposed laboratories, hidden within an asteroid at the edge of known space. Dr. Elena Reed, the lead researcher, studied the holographic display of Thyla's neural patterns with growing fascination. This is unprecedented, she murmured, adjusting her thick-rimmed glasses. The enhancement isn't just stable, it's evolving. And these hormone levels. She glanced at Thyla, who was practically sitting in Jackson's lap at the examination table. Congratulations are in order, I believe. Jackson froze. What? Thyla's hand tightened on his arm, her enhanced nervous system practically humming with excitement. I'm pregnant? Indeed. Dr. Reed's smile was genuine. And it appears the pregnancy is actually helping to stabilize the neural enhancement. The fetus is acting as a natural bridge between your modified nervous system and Jackson's human biology. That's possible? Jackson asked, his mind reeling. Apparently, it's more than possible, Dr. Reed replied. It's exactly what your body's needed. The enhancement was seeking stability through physical contact, but the pregnancy provides a permanent biological connection that satisfies those requirements. Thyla shifted in Jackson's embrace, her skin practically glowing with a combination of joy and intensified desire. That explains the increased need for contact. Dr. Reed nodded professionally. The pregnancy is amplifying the enhancement's effects on your hormone levels. You'll need regular, intimate contact with Jackson to maintain optimal stability. Think of it as prescribed therapy. Doctor's orders? Thyla's voice was innocent, but her eyes sparkled with mischief as she felt Jackson's heart rate spike. Precisely. Dr. Reed began gathering data tablets. I'll need to run more tests, but first, the facility's security alarm suddenly blared to life. They found us, Jackson growled, already moving toward the door with Thyla, seamlessly matching his movements. Their forced proximity had made them extraordinarily coordinated. Take the emergency exit, Dr. Reed ordered, activating security protocols. I'll wipe the data. They can't know about the baby. A successful human-alien hybrid with enhanced neural capabilities would be too tempting a research subject for either Krell or Baron Thex. Thyla's face hardened at the mention of her father. He wanted to be rid of me as a burden. Now I carry the future of two species within me. Ironic, isn't it? Jackson guided them through the corridor, one arm around Thyla while the other held his weapon ready. His cruel joke led to something revolutionary. Speaking of revolution, Thyla said as they reached the hangar, I have an idea. Why do I feel like I'm not going to like this? Because you're learning, she grinned, pulling him toward the ship. But you'll do it anyway, because you love me. That obvious, huh? As obvious as the fact that I'm carrying your child. Her expression softened. Our child, a perfect blend of human and alien potential. They reached the stellar vagrant just as the first explosion rocked the facility. Once inside, Thyla immediately accessed the ship's communication array. What are you doing? Jackson asked, maintaining their necessary physical contact while preparing for launch. Broadcasting. Her fingers flew across the controls. To everyone, the truth about my father's weapons deals, Krell's operations, and most importantly, proof that humans and aliens can create something beautiful together. You're going to start a social revolution while we're running for our lives? Why not? Her eyes glittered with determination. My father thought I was worthless because I was paralyzed. Krell thought I was just a bargaining chip. But you saw my potential. Now it's time for everyone else to see it too. The ship lifted off as the first enemy vessels appeared in the asteroid field. Jackson expertly wove through the debris while Thyla handled communications and defensive systems, their movements perfectly synchronized thanks to their constant contact. You know, Jackson said as they evaded another volley of fire, when I accepted you as payment for that job, I didn't expect to end up starting a family and a revolution. Disappointed? Thyla asked, though her enhanced senses told her exactly how he felt. Thrilled, he corrected, pulling her closer as they made the jump to hyperspace. Though we should probably discuss wedding plans at some point. I mean, if you want. Jackson Reed, she interrupted, turning to face him with an amused expression. I'm carrying your child. I literally can't function properly without your touch, and I'm about to overthrow my father's corrupt regime with you. I think we're a bit past traditional courtship. Is that a yes? That's a, you're stuck with me forever. You wonderful human who saw past my limitations and gave me everything I never knew I needed. I can live with that. He smiled, then tensed as another alarm sounded. But first, we need to deal with the fleet of ships following us. Thyla finished, already adjusting their shields. Please, they don't stand a chance against us now. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. Her hand rested briefly on her stomach before returning to the controls. We're fighting for the future, a future where no one is seen as a burden, where potential isn't limited by prejudice or disability. A future our child can be proud of, Jackson agreed, and together they turned to face whatever challenges lay ahead, their bond stronger than ever. The Stellar Vagrant's communication array buzzed constantly with incoming messages. Thyla's broadcast had struck a chord across the sector, drawing responses from others who had faced similar discrimination and those inspired by their story. Another resistance cell just made contact, Thyla announced from her position in Jackson's lap, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Former military, discharged for various defects, and they want to help. Jackson nuzzled her neck, partly out of affection and partly because their constant need for contact had made such intimacy as natural as breathing. Your father's going to regret throwing away so many capable people. He already does, she purred, leaning back against him as waves of pleasure rippled through her enhanced nervous system. Our latest intelligence suggests, she gasped suddenly, her body tensing. Thyla! Jackson's concern turned to amazement as the ship's sensors began registering unprecedented energy readings emanating from her body. The neural enhancement, amplified by her pregnancy hormones, had begun manifesting in unexpected ways. The holographic displays around them responded to her thoughts, data streaming faster than should have been possible. Her pale green skin glowed with an inner light, and her eyes blazed with newfound power. I can feel everything, she whispered. The ship's systems, the surrounding space. Jackson, I think I can sense the pursuing fleet's movements before they make them. He held her tighter, providing the physical anchor she needed as her powers expanded. The pregnancy must be accelerating the enhancement's development. Dr. Reed's data suggested it might happen, but not this fast. It's not just the enhancement anymore. Thyla guided his hand to her slightly swollen abdomen. Our child. I can feel their consciousness merging with the technology, creating something entirely new. The perfect bridge between human adaptability and alien potential. A warning alarm blared. Baron Thex's flagship had just emerged from hyperspace, leading a fleet of warships. Perfect timing for a test run, Jackson said, but Thyla was already moving. Through their constant physical connection, he could feel echoes of her new abilities. The way she perceived space itself as a malleable medium. How she could predict trajectory and intention through some impossible combination of enhanced neural processing and maternal instinct. The Stellar Vagrant moved like a living thing under her control, effortlessly evading the first volley of fire. But instead of running, Thyla did something unexpected. She reached out with her new abilities, touching the enemy ship's systems. "What are you doing?" Jackson asked, fascinated. "Showing them what they need to see." Her voice had taken on an ethereal quality. The truth about what happens when you underestimate those you consider broken. The enemy fleet's weapons powered down as their crews watched the data streaming to their screens. Proof of Baron Thex's crimes, evidence of his betrayal of his own people, and most importantly, medical scans showing the miraculous development of Thyla and Jackson's child. "They're standing down," Jackson observed, amazed. "All except your father's flagship." "Of course," Thyla smiled, though there was steel in her voice. "He's too proud to admit he was wrong. About me, about humans, about everything." The Baron's voice crackled over the comm system. "You dare turn my own fleet against me? You're nothing but a cripple I should have disposed of years ago." "No, father," Thyla responded, her enhanced abilities carrying her words directly into every ship's communication system. "I'm what happens when someone sees potential instead of weakness. When love replaces cruelty. When a joke becomes a miracle." She turned to Jackson, her eyes glowing with power and desire. "I need you," she whispered. "The baby, the enhancement. And everything is stronger when we're completely connected." He understood immediately, pulling her into a passionate kiss that sent waves of energy cascading through the ship's systems. Their bond, physical and emotional, amplified her abilities to new heights. Through their connection, they shared the experience of what happened next. Thyla reached out with her enhanced consciousness, supported by Jackson's unwavering presence, and simply shut down her father's ship. Every system, every weapon, every engine, all disabled with a thought. "Impossible!" The Baron's voice was barely a whisper. "No," Thyla corrected him. "Potential. The very thing you never saw in me. The thing Jackson recognized from the start." The Allied ships they'd contacted over the past weeks began emerging from hyperspace, surrounding the disabled flagship. Their timing wasn't coincidental. Thyla had coordinated everything through her enhanced abilities. "It's over, father," she declared. "Your reign of cruelty ends today, and something new begins. A future where no one is discarded, where differences are celebrated, where jokes become destiny." Jackson held her close, marveling at how the woman he'd once considered a burden had become the most powerful force for change the sector had ever seen. "I love you," he murmured against her skin, feeling the energy of their bond surge in response. "I know," she replied with a smile that managed to be both triumphant and seductive. "Now take me to our quarters. This pregnant, enhanced, former paralyzed princess needs some private time with her human before we finish revolutionizing the sector." The interrogation of Baron Thex revealed a truth more sinister than anyone had imagined. The weapons deals, the discrimination against the imperfect, it had all been part of a larger plan orchestrated by an ancient alien council known as the Purity Directive. "They've been manipulating societies for centuries," Thyla explained to the assembled resistance leaders, her enhanced abilities allowing her to process the complex web of conspiracy even as she maintained her necessary physical contact with Jackson. Keeping species separate, promoting genetic purity, preventing the very kind of union that created this. She gestured to her now prominent belly where their child's presence had turned her neural enhancement into something unprecedented. "The directive believes mixing species will weaken them," Jackson added, his arm protectively around Thyla. "They never considered it might make them stronger." The final confrontation took place in the heart of the directive's hidden station. Thyla, nearly 8 months pregnant, stood with Jackson in the control center, their bond amplifying her abilities to levels that made even the ancient aliens pause. "You dare challenge millennia of careful genetic cultivation?" the directive's leader, a being of pure energy, demanded. "No," Thyla replied, her skin glowing with power as Jackson held her. "We dare to prove you wrong. Look." Through her enhanced ability, she showed them everything. Not just data, but experience. The moment Jackson first saw her potential instead of her paralysis. The way their love had transformed a cruel joke into a miracle. The perfect blend of human adaptability and alien advancement growing within her. "Impossible," the leader whispered. "That's what my father said," Thyla smiled. "Before we showed him a better way." The battle that followed wasn't fought with weapons, but with truth. Thyla and Jackson, their bond stronger than ever, used their connection to broadcast reality across the galaxy. Centuries of manipulation exposed, the beauty of diversity revealed, the power of seeing potential where others saw only limitations. The directive's power crumbled not through violence, but through understanding. Species that had been kept apart for generations began reaching out to each other. Those who had been branded as imperfect found their unique traits celebrated rather than shunned. 1 month later, in the newly established Unity Medical Center that had once been in Baron Thex's citadel, Thyla went into labor. "The enhancement is going crazy," she gasped, clinging to Jackson as waves of sensation overwhelmed her enhanced nervous system. "I can feel everything." "Focus on me," he murmured, their years of constant physical contact making their connection deeper than ever. "Just like always." The birth itself was a miracle that drew observers from across the galaxy. As their child entered the world, Thyla's neural enhancement pulsed with unprecedented power, touching every monitoring system in the facility. Their daughter was perfect. Pale green skin like her mother, her father's dark hair, and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of both species. The moment she was placed in Thyla's arms, with Jackson holding them both, every piece of technology in the room responded to her presence. "She's beautiful," Jackson whispered, watching their daughter already beginning to show signs of both enhanced neural capabilities and human adaptability. "She's hope," Thyla corrected, her own powers harmonizing with their child's. Living proof that the greatest potential comes from embracing differences instead of fearing them. Baron Thex, now reformed and working to undo the damage he'd caused, was permitted to meet his granddaughter. The moment he saw her, his previous prejudices crumbled completely. "I was such a fool," he admitted, watching the child already beginning to manipulate nearby systems with a thought. "I gave away my greatest treasure as a joke, never seeing the potential for something extraordinary." "That's the past," Thyla said firmly, leaning into Jackson's embrace as their daughter demonstrated abilities neither species had ever shown before. "The future is about seeing potential everywhere, in everyone." As if understanding, their daughter reached out with both her tiny hand and her developing abilities. Touching her grandfather's heart in more ways than one, the story of the paralyzed princess and the human who saw her potential became legend, taught in schools across the galaxy as the moment everything changed. Species began intermingling freely, celebrating their differences rather than fearing them. The neural enhancement technology, refined through understanding of Thyla's pregnancy, had helped countless others overcome their limitations. But perhaps the greatest legacy was the simplest. The truth that love sees potential where others see problems, and that sometimes the cruelest jokes can lead to the most beautiful destinies. "You know," Jackson said one evening, watching their daughter demonstrate yet another impossible combination of human and alien abilities, "I never did get paid for that original job." Thyla laughed, pulling him down for a kiss that sent pleasant shockwaves through both their enhanced nervous systems. "Oh, my love, you got something far better." "Everything," he corrected, holding his family close. "I got everything."